Chris McCracken.
Yes.
What you got for us, doggy?
So we got some information late last week from Bloomberg, actually, that given us some information, insider information, I guess you could call it, about The Last of Us multiplayer. And it's not good news.
No, it's
but
not.
I don't know that it's fair to say like it's being delayed because we never really had like a date on this game. Just that they had been working on it for a really, really long time, and that here lately they've been focusing most of their efforts on it. But the report from Bloomberg is basically saying that Naughty Dog has been slowing down and scaling down the team that's working on it. And that's kind of different, especially considering like the last, I don't remember what the name of the event was, but the last one that Keighley hosted, and then Neil Druckmann came out there and kind of like teased it again some more. It was right before when they introduced a little bit of information.
The Game Awards?
Was it no, it wasn't the Game Awards because he was on that stage where the floor and the back is all. Was it last year's Summer Game Fest? It might have been last year's Summer Game Fest.
Oh, I thought you just said the last thing he hosted. I was just thinking the last.
I thought
thing
it was the last thing he hosted, but now
Awards.
that you mention it, and now that I think about it more, it must have been last year's SFG. I'm gonna keep saying it that way.
It sounds great.
You mean SGF?
I just mean Game Fest. I feel like it was. It might have been at the last Game Fest. But regardless, one of the other things that Bloomberg reported was that, Sony bought Destiny.
SGF. SGF.
Okay.
Because SGF, Summer Games Fest.
SGF.
SGF.
SGF. Yes, Jeffs.
Mind. SGF.
Go ahead.
Anyways, I lost my train of thought. Oh, yes. So Sony had bought Bungie, if you remember, a while back.
Yes.
And so they actually, according to this report, had Bungie come in and play through the game and kind of give some feedback because they're used to making a live multiplayer game, because the thought is that this is going to be possibly a live service style game that we'll be playing for a while, the people who jump into it. And supposedly they weren't all that impressed with it.
Oh, really?
And they were like, I feel like you need to reassess this project. And so supposedly that's what's happening. But at the same time that they're possibly reassessing some of it, they're pulling people off of it and moving them over to start working on whatever their next IP is going to be.
There you go.
So it's like, I don't know what this means. While I don't think at all that it would be outside of the realm of something like this just getting canceled, I also don't think that would be. Naughty Dog in particular has never had to deal with anything like that. Although at the same time, they're not like multiplayer kings. They had the multiplayer for The Last of Us that was part of the first one, and it was actually really good. Gabe, you had made mention that you never played it. It was a lot of fun and actually pretty intense.
Well, not only had I never played it, but I never even had a want to play it. I didn't understand what could be good about it. If I have Call of Duty, what would be funner about Last of Us multiplayer?
Well, but that's like saying, I like oranges, but tell me why I want to eat apples. They're very different things.
Well, is it that's what I'm asking, because I never tried it. I have no idea what it plays like. Is it just, and because I never liked the shooting in Naughty Dog games.
Sure.
And so the shooting mechanic to me in Uncharted and Last of Us, I didn't enjoy.
Sure.
So I just never could understand why, number one, why they would do it outside of, I just didn't see the draw in it. And so when this news came out, I was like, no sweat for me, because I probably wouldn't play it. And then you had mentioned that the PS3 version was actually really fun. Yeah. What makes it fun? Is it just the different modes, or?
Well, it's so to kind of touch on what you mentioned before, the shooting is essentially the same, whether it's a gun or a bow or whatever, but a lot of, if you remember from The Last of Us, a lot of the fighting that you can get into is setting traps or throwing bombs or just go up and fist fighting and various things like that. All of those elements were incorporated in the gameplay. And I don't remember offhand what the various game type modes were, but because it was more difficult of a game and they were team based, it just felt more intense and it felt more dangerous, I guess. I don't know. It had a different feel to it than something like a Call of Duty that feels more casual. This felt like you really got to focus and you got to get your stuff together and bring your A game kind of thing. And the games could get very intense and be a lot of fun. Now, I don't say that. I say that as someone who didn't like play it like infinitely. Like I didn't just play it forever, kind of thing. But I played a good number of it, and when I had times where I'd go in and play with friends and team up with them, we even teamed up with people from the community back then. It was a lot of fun. Now this current version of it that they're working on supposedly is going to be more expansive than that. I don't want to sit there and say like a battle royale, or I don't know what all that means, but it was supposed to be more than just what it was. It was supposed to be bigger and have more to it. And in some respects, you were kind of thinking that it was going to be something where you're going to want to constantly come back. Not necessarily like a Call of Duty, but maybe something more like akin to a Destiny, where like maybe there's more missions and there's more structure to it. It's not just simply PvP. We don't really know, because none of that stuff was really divulged, but it does seem like it's not in a good spot, and who knows if it's even going to show up at this point. I mean, especially if they're pulling a lot of the team off to go work on whatever their next version of their IP is going to be. And quite frankly, that's probably, I mean, I agree with you when they came out with the multiplayer for The Last of Us. I thought the same thing. Like, oh, that's interesting. Like, but of course to be fair, they had multiplayer in the Uncharted games. So it's not like it was completely out of the left field kind of thing. But yeah, then when this got announced and how expansive it in theory was going to be, it's like, it just doesn't feel like what they should be working on. And it sounds like that's not really their bread and butter, or their cup of tea, so to speak.
Yeah, I would think it'd be tough when you're known to do one thing really well, and then you're like, we're going to take on this other thing that we all kind of have our thoughts about. It's not like they're inventing something new to do. It's not like they invented Battle Royale.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? Like if they would have had some kind of Last of Us and then invented this Battle Royale thing, you're like, oh, that's kind of a different take on multiplayer.
Yeah.
But it's like, if it's not a completely different take, I was like, I just don't like the shooting enough to want to struggle through this.
And I think, Chris, you're the only person I know that's ever really mentioned the multiplayer. Like when people talk about The Last of Us, I never played it either, and I never hear anyone talk about it. So when I hear about it, it's like, oh yeah, I guess that was a thing. I just kind of like Gabe. I just never had the interest because I know nothing about it.
Yeah, I mean, again, back when I was playing it, of course, I was on the PS3. This was a while ago. Right. So I teamed up with people in our community and played, and we would talk about it on the forums back in the day. Yeah. I mean, now, granted, it wasn't like, we're not competing with like, oh man, pushing Call of Duty out of the way kind of thing. Like it was never that big.
Of course.
But yeah, it had the people who played it like really, really enjoyed it and played it for a really long time. And I had a blast the times that I was in it. So
that's awesome.
I had hope for whatever this new version of it was going to be, and I was definitely going to check it out and dabble with it. But I mean, I was expecting it to take the world by storm, and maybe if that's where it is, it might be worth just kind of moving on to whatever else.
Yeah,
because it doesn't feel like. I just wonder what percentage of people are like, no, the multiplayer couldn't wait. You know what I'm saying? Like if it goes away, is that like 2% of the people are bummed? You know what I'm saying? But 98% of us are like, yes, work on the new IP.
I think it's more than that than you're thinking. I think you would be surprised how many more people were into it. But yes, it's not going to be like 48% or anything like that.
Right.
Right.
The show is popular, but Last of Us Part 2 came out however many, a couple of years ago. So, like, do we know, was this going to be a standalone game? Was it going to be you have to have Last of Us Part 2? It was. Okay.
No, it was going to, I mean, standalone game in the sense that, like, I don't know if it was going to require The Last of Us Part 2 to launch into it. I don't know the answer to that, but the thought was that this was going to be like a separate project that would have its own launch, was probably going to be free to play because they're likely to have something. You got to think everything these days has a battle pass or something. And if they do that, they tend to be free to play. So I just assumed that's the route they were going to go. I don't know that for sure, but that was my assumption.
Yeah, it would have been weird to add it as like you were saying, launch it from Part 2 when that game is not current.
Yeah, when I saw this, I was like, oh, too bad. Go work on the new IP. That's all I care about. Skip the multiplayer. Last of Us is fine. That's done.
Tell us a new story.
Yes, tell us something new. Give me something. Yes, move all your developers over to the new IP. Go. I'm fine with it.
I think that would be my heart as well.